welcome to Concrete Conversations, the Indian real estate podcast. I'm Yash.
And I'm Akshay, and we're the hosts of the show.
Home buying can be a daunting process. The sheer volume of choices and information available, the documentation, due diligence, and financial planning required altogether can make this process extremely overwhelming for anyone, especially first-time home buyers.
To help you navigate home buying in India, and to give you some insights on how to select your dream home, we have with us today a luxury residential consultant, the founder and CEO of Property First, Bhavesh Kothari.
Bhavesh brings a decade of experience in residential real estate across multiple markets in South India, including Chennai, Coimbatore, Hyderabad, Cochin, and most extensively in Bangalore. After working for the Embassy Group to market their luxury projects, Bhavesh went on to found Property First in 2017, and they have since expanded their footprint to many more cities, dealing primarily in luxury residential properties.
In this home buyer's guide for Indian real estate, Bhavesh sheds light on the right mindset for buying residential real estate, both as an end user and as an investor, and walks us through this process, shedding light on topics such as property selection, documentation, finance, and a lot more.
So without further ado, let's dive in and help you take the first step towards finding your dream home. Hi Bhavesh, welcome to Concrete Conversations. Thank you so much for your time. How are you and how are things going in Bangalore where you are right now?
Hi Ash, hey, good to hear from you guys. Bangalore is beautiful right now. The weather is amazing. It's been raining. It was drizzling. Now it's raining very heavily. The lakes are full. The roads have the biggest of the potholes right now. And ironically, there's a report today in the newspaper that Bangalore is, of course, the best metro to stay in India. So we're just wondering. Yes, I think it's right. Still right.
Perfect. So, since you have such a breadth of experience in residential real estate in multiple markets that too, I thought it would be interesting to our listeners to know a bit about your journey and how you started out in real estate and all the way up to, founding Property First, which is your firm now.
Sure. I've been in real estate for over 10 years now. I started my career with advertising in Mumbai. I'm a graduate in advertising and then worked in ad agencies, worked with FMCG brands. And then when I did my MBA, I was placed in a consulting firm. Real estate happened by chance to me where my uncle who owns a real estate firm in Chennai, a pretty large one, called me over to help him with the real estate marketing, etc. And so from Chennai, my real estate journey started. I worked in all South Indian markets, Coimbatore, Hyderabad, Cochin, Chennai, and now Bangalore for last 9 years.
Right.
I was in Bangalore. I used to work with Embassy Group, helping them sell their luxury projects. And Embassy is one of the finest brands when it comes to real estate development. They are the masters of luxury, what luxury really is, right? How it's designed, how it's implemented, and the whole thought process, what Mr. Jitu Birwani brings on the table of the kind of offerings and the life standards he wants to give to his clients. So I had the luxury mindset within me. So I spoke to my boss and I told her that, hey, I'm gonna start on my own, and I did. Right, it was difficult initially because you had to create your own brand. You don't know where you would be. It's a big risk you're taking, but again, I was always a risk taker. The end goals didn't matter for me ever. It was only how I'm putting the efforts in, what I'm learning in the process, and relationships which you build in the whole process, which was mattered to me. So I would say, God grace, in last 5 years of Property First, I've achieved a little bit of what I wanted to achieve, but there's still a long journey ahead when it comes to selling luxury properties in the market. I would say we started with Bangalore. Now we have grown to Bombay, Goa, Hyderabad, Dubai as well. And then there's a lot of growth which is about to come.
Right. So I thought I would ask a more abstract question about the kind of mindset that people have going into such a decision. So what are the arguments in your mind, at least, for why one should or should not invest in residential real estate? Can it be considered as an investment from the outset? And finally, what would be the right time for someone to, think about this and make this decision?
Sure. A very important question again, Yash. I get this question thrown a lot, and I enjoy the healthy arguments around it. So I have friends who are in equity markets and where they say that, hey, real estate is not given more than 3%, 4%. I have friends who who deal in gold, and they say, hey, the gold is the best investment.
Right.
And the third investment is real estate. So when you're earning money, traditionally there are three places where you would invest your money: stocks, equities, number two, gold, and number three, real estate.
Right.
However, when it comes to real estate, particularly, see, real estate is a safe investment, right? Traditionally, that is the notion which our parents have told us. Now, it is safe because of a reason, right? The prices usually never fall. It may not appreciate, let's say, for 5 years, 7 years. But if you understand real estate as a pro real estate investor, you have to invest and wait for 10 years. There's always a 10-year cycle in real estate where the appreciation comes in. Now, people who invested in real estate in 2011, 2012, and who sold, let's say, just before COVID at around 2019, 2020, pretty much would not have got more than, let's say, 3 to 4% because the cycle was that.
Right.
But people who waited till 2021 and 22 for that 10-year cycle to complete have made at least, and I've sold a lot of properties where people have made at least 70 to 80% return over a period of 8 to 9 to 10 years,
Right.
So it's still on an average 7 to 8% returns. Now, consider the risk which compared to which is with real estate, right? It's a zero risk asset because people will buy houses. If you have invested in a good property in a good location with a good developer, you cannot go wrong. Nowadays RERA is very, very strong, so your legals are taken care of. A property is bound to appreciate as more and more people are flocking towards the bigger cities.
Right, right. A lot of really interesting things you're talking about there, Bhavesh, and I think that brings us to the meat of the conversation, which is essentially the theme of today's episode: the home buyer's guide for Indian real estate. And
Right.
and I
Let's come to the point. Yes.
yeah, I'm sure a lot of people are really curious about that because everyone has their own philosophy, and like you said, our parents teach us one thing, the market teaches us another thing,
Correct.
and generations have different philosophies evolving through time.
Got it.
Why don't we start by breaking down the stages of home buying for Indian residents?
Sure. So, I would, share my steps, which I usually advise to people. See, first thing, Akshay, is the location, right? In real estate, it's all about location, location, location. That's the first thing I heard when I entered real estate, and still
Yeah.
do, right? A bad property in a good location will still give you good profits, and it'll appreciate well. However, I think we should keep the investment and the end use separate, right? A lot of people get confused where when they buy a property, they think how much will it appreciate, etc. I tell everyone, do not get confused between an investment property and end use property. An end use property, even though it's expensive, and most probably it will be because the seller knows that it's a good property, unless you're really lucky to find a great deal, it will be slightly more premium, and it because you're buying at a higher denominator, your denominator is slightly more than anything else. You're paying slightly more for it, but you're going to enjoy that house, the peace and the happiness which you're going to get for the next 10 years, 15 years, or whatever time frame is unmatchable, right? So if you like a property and it's slightly more than what the next door property is selling at, I would still advise pay that extra 15% because currently the market is such, right?
Right.
People are really dissatisfied with the kind of pricing which ready to move properties are commanding. So I would say if you're getting a good property in a good location in the city or close to your office, close to the schools, do pick it up. If you want to invest in a property, then keep your sentiments out of the property where you know that you don't have to stay in that property. Of course, you should invest thinking as an investor that how the property features would be. You should think as an end user, but again, keep the emotions out of it, right? You should negotiate well on that property.
Right.
Location is very important when you're investing. Do not invest in a place where you don't see any development coming in for next 10 years, right? A lot of people buy properties 50 kilometers, 70 kilometers outskirts, thinking that it is property, it will appreciate, but at its own speed. A property which is in a decent location, check the micro market, what other properties are selling at, check the builder reputation, check his previous credentials. For a good developers, pay that slightly bit more of premium and be satisfied with it. So this is my advice to anyone who's looking to buying a property, that bifurcate your investment versus your end use goals. Write down your goals. Are you looking for appreciation? Are you looking for the use for rental returns for that property? And then invest accordingly.
I think you've really clearly highlighted a top-down strategy for home buying in terms of the property selection stage of the process.
Right. And, another part of this process, which is, I feel, kind of daunting for first-time home buyers especially, is the documentation aspect when looking to purchase a property or a residential flat, So, and I know that this is quite different depending on the market and the place we're looking at. But suppose we're talking about, the primary market buying a newly constructed apartment from a developer. So, what are some things that a homeowner should look out for or keep an eye out for in terms of documentation?
Sure, Yash. It's a very important element of, once you've shortlisted a property, you have negotiated on the price with the developer. I think you should definitely check this agreement to sale draft. You should check the property. There's a whole set of property papers which, if you want, you should give it to a good lawyer who will check it for you. You should always ask for the RERA number of the property, right? So RERA is an added layer of the legal checks, where the government checks the legal documents of the property and does not give it a RERA number if it is not. Or again, there are certain criterias where which the government allows without a RERA number, which is the property should be more than a certain percentage complete or less than number of apartments. But 98% of the times, larger projects will have a RERA number.
Right. Do you think, Bhavesh, maybe if you could give us a quick summary of like the standard documents that a home buyer could expect? What are they called and what do they mean?
Sure. We should ask for number one, for the property, the title deeds. Now, title deeds are the mother deeds of the property, which show the history of the land being sold from the first person who was allotted to all the person it has changed hands with. And it is a clear bifurcation of every person who has come in between, has followed all the legal proceedings and then passed on to the other person, right? So there's a whole set of title deeds which you should check. Your lawyer would check it. Of course, it's difficult for any person in layman term to understand it because it is in the local language.
Right.
Number one. Number two, you should always check for the khata of the property. You should always check for the property taxes, municipal property taxes updated for the property. And you should always ask for the encumbrance certificate for the property. If encumbrance certificate shows if there is any loan on the property, if there have been any legal proceedings on the property in the past. So title deeds, khata, property tax paid received, and encumbrance certificates. These are the four things which you should ask for.
Right.
Absolutely.
Perfect. And, moving on ahead in this process, I guess after, you've seen a place and you've liked the layout, you've identified what you want, negotiated a price, then comes the part of arranging finances. Since most people, especially first-time home buyers, are looking at purchasing through the usage of a home loan, right? So any tips that you would have for home buyers in this? How do they, how do they structure their home loan? What tenure should they look at? Any other points they should keep in mind?
Sure. Yes, I would advise, if it's a first-time home buyer, always take that loan amount. Even if you have your savings, take that extra bit of loan amount, because loan as an industry has helped. It usually helps us in buying properties, right? So when your loan percentage is 6.5%, interest is 6.5% to 7%, a lot of people, do not consider it as a burden. So people who have a budget of 1 crore and they have, a saving of 50 lakhs only with them and have a loan eligibility of, let's say, 1 crore, should buy that 1 crore plus 50 lakh property rather than buying only a 1 crore property, because your loan interest is only 6.5%. You do get certain tax benefits out of it. That is an added advantage. But apart from that, your inflation, the way it is right now, it is much more than that percentage, right? So money which is lying in your bank account versus a money which is invested in the house plus borrowed, at the end of it will give you much more returns. So take that home loan. Loan is the easiest thing when it comes to buying the property. I don't think people should worry much about it. The interest rates remain the same based on your CIBIL score. All the banks do match up to the interest rates, standard interest rates. So yes, I think loan is something which people should not be bothered about much due to the regulations by by the SEBI,
Right.
by the RBI, I'm sorry.
Bhavesh, of course, we've talked about selecting the property. We've talked about finalizing the financing, buying the property, the taxation. What about post-sale, post the purchase? What are the things that a buyer needs to keep in mind as they're moving in or as they're waiting for their house to get ready?
Sure. See, if you bought a property through a consultant, you don't have to worry about any of these procedures, because a good consultant will take care of it end to end in the whole purchasing cycle, where he'll advise you which apartment to buy, which apartment should come at what price. He'll negotiate on your behalf. He'll take care of the entire paperwork end to end, and at the end of it, he'll become your friend. When you're buying it through a developer, mostly the consultants do not, charge anything. If you're buying in resale, there's a certain fee which you have to pay for it, and I think that is worth for the kind of deck and the kind of money you're putting in to take that professional advice. There are a lot of these zero brokerage companies which are coming up in the market. I mean, they have people who are joining. The person would leave after a few months. You will be left, if you bought a property through them, you'll be left hanging around where the person doesn't know anything about the property. He's just trying to get this incentive out of a sale. So I would advise that go through a good consultant. He'll help you end to end in the whole process. Again, if you wish to interact directly with the builder, that's also a decent choice. It's just that you have to spend a lot of time in the paperwork, etc. Every builder has a different paperwork attached to it, so a good developer will take care of the process end to end. You don't need to worry much about that.
Yeah, interestingly, Bhavesh, because you said work with a good consultant. So we talked about the property selection process, but this is probably a part of the home buyer's guide. How does a buyer select the right property consultant?
Good. See, selecting a good consultant, you should always ask for the previous, testimonials from the clients. Go through his reviews online. If it's a consulting firm, you should check out their reviews on LinkedIn, on various places. But so far, I think if you ask for testimonials in the past, and you would know, and plus you don't have to pay anything until you finalize the consultant. So speak to multiple consultants, whoever you think has got more knowledge about the property. Go with it. I would advise everyone that every area, every property, has got a certain set of consultants or a consultant who is an expert. Go with the expert of that particular area or that particular property. He can get you amazing deals which are not available in the market usually.
Right. Perfect. And another important thing, at least that I have heard from maybe my peers or friends who are looking to buy a home, that a lot of people don't really consider possibly the outgoings and the costs incurred post purchase of a residential property as well. We talked about amenities and us spending so much more time in our homes or our gated communities or complexes, but of course those amenities and those facilities are often reflected in the outgoings of the property as well, right? So what should home buyers think about or keep in mind about post-purchase costs?
Well, the post-purchase costs, they could only be maintenance and property taxes,
right?
And also if there's a higher electricity and water bill, right? So you should check these things with the developers if it's an under construction property, or with your neighbors who are already staying there in the property before making that purchase decision. If there is any variation from the normal nuances, where the electricity bill is normal, it's a residential meter, the water is coming from the corporation, there's not a lot of dependency from tankers, the maintenance of the property should be the maintenance cost should be in the fair value. If you ask me today, a 4.5 rupees per square feet is very, very fair with the kind of inflation we have. These are the costs, and of course there's a property tax which has to be paid to the municipality. So these are the four things usually which people do incur in the cost over and above once they buy the property but these are very nominal costs as a percentage as compared to your investment in the property, right? If it's a 1 crore property, your maintenance is approximately 7,000 to 8,000 rupees a month. Your property taxes are around 4,000 to 5,000 rupees a month. Your water and electricity bill also very, very nominal based on the usage. I would still say look at the property first and then its post expenses.
Right.
Bhavesh, there's two sort of questions that are coming to mind. I'm going to ask one which directly impacts Indian residents first,
right?
Which is, we've talked about under construction and sort of the primary market purchases, but in the secondary market purchase, there are other sort of costs one has to plan for, right? There's society, transfer fees and NOC and stuff like that. So could you tell us a little bit about the additional things or the alternative things that one needs to look at, and where the roadblocks might be, and how working with a good property consultant can help you overcome that?
Sure. Actually, I think that's a very, very good question you've asked. In secondary market, people are, I've seen that people are slightly worried buying properties in secondary market because of the past experiences, right? When do you give a token amount? Because you're not dealing with an organization, you're dealing with an individual. Should you check the legal papers first? Or if the seller is not giving the legal papers, wants a token first, what is the trust factor? If you're dealing directly with the seller, here are my important points you should ask for. You should ask for the soft copy of all his legal documents which shows his ownership and buying the property from either a developer or his past owners of the property, and you should share it with a good lawyer. Definitely you should have a good lawyer when you're hiring a good lawyer or a good consultant when you're buying a resale property which is in the secondary market. You should keep everything very clear with the seller that the property prices is all inclusive, and the only thing which you will pay over and above will be the registration cost, and this thing should be clearly mentioned in the sale agreement. That saves you from a lot of hassles tomorrow, that if there is a transfer fee to the society, who will bear it? If there's a transfer fee to the builder, who will bear it? If there are property taxes or maintenance which has been unpaid for a very long time, who will bear it, right? These are surprises which may come up in future after a sale deed, a registration of the property is done. So make sure your agreement is strong enough to include that your price is all inclusive, and any other cost which comes up in future against the property, except the registration and stamp duty cost, will be borne by the seller of the property.
Right.
I would advise to go with a good broker who will help you. He'll have a checklist, he will check it through with the seller, he will represent your interest, he will take care of all the paperwork, documentation. He will not miss out anything which you may still miss out if it's a secondary transaction. I would highly advise to go with a broker. Again, if somebody wants to deal directly, then the points which I've just mentioned should be taken care of, and a very good lawyer.
Understood.
Right. Perfect. And I just wanted to, maybe go back to something that you had mentioned, which was under construction properties. Even earlier on, we were talking about how now that there is demand again, there's sometimes an increased demand for, and therefore a premium for, ready to move in properties. But now that there are so many home buyers in the market, I wanted to get your opinion on buying under construction residential properties today. Is it still a viable option for home buyers? And if so, what should they keep in mind when looking at under construction properties?
Sure. Yes, the way real estate works is that there are early set of investors or people who invest their money early for end use, and they get a price benefit out of it because developers charge a very low amount initially, and the prices keeps getting increased as the inventory is sold with various tranches, right? After 15% inventory sold, developer will increase, and will keep increasing it until the project is fully completed. A developer makes most of the profit when the inventory is 50% plus sold. So if you ask me, if the inventory is sold less than 50%, it's a good time to invest and see your money appreciate. However, a lot of end users, so that's for an under construction property, a lot of end users come into the property when they see their friends are staying in the property, their parents are staying in the property, their relatives are staying, and then they want to buy, so they will pay definitely a higher price. And a lot of these times the inventory gets exchanged from an investor who bought during an early stage to an end user who is buying now. So that is the benefit for an investor, that if you invest in a good property, it will appreciate, because once the society is ready, do not sell the property until the society is ready and people are staying in the society, because the best appreciation comes in when the community, the society is ready, people are staying in there, and people start enjoying that society. People are ready to pay any price for a good society today.
Perfect. I think you've captured a lot of the really important elements for people living in India, and even in general for home buyers. Of course, there's one bracket of home buyers that we haven't talked about, but we know that Property First works with them in extensive detail, and that is the NRI market.
Right.
Correct? Could you maybe explain to us how is the property buying process different for NRIs, and what are sort of the changes or the differences that in the process when they are selecting a property either for investment or for their parents and such and such?
Sure. So, Akshay, again, very good question. If you are sitting in the US, Singapore, Dubai, wherever you are, it is a lot of hassle mentally to go through multiple properties, to arrange for the viewing of each property, a virtual viewing. So, again, I advise a lot of people to go through a good consultant who is aware of the market and will, shortlist the properties in the first discussion, will arrange a virtual viewing. He'll go to every single apartment. If you don't have a specific requirement and you want to explore the market, rather than spending time arranging for different viewings with different builders, negotiating with different people, go with the right consultant. And he will help you. And legally speaking, there's no difference when you buy a property as an NRI versus an Indian resident. When you sell a property, that's where the major difference do come in.
Right.
If you're an NRI, your purchaser of the property, when you sell the property, will deduct TDS at a much higher rate than the standard 1% TDS which anybody would deduct while buying a property. So there's a process for that, which you have to go through. Your auditor will explain you through the process. But a lot of people are not aware, as buyers or sellers, that if you are an NRI seller, there's a different taxation which comes in picture. You also have to check in the dual taxation treaty, where if you're having a capital gains in India once you have sold a property, and as an NRI, do you have to pay taxes in India and in your own country also, or only in one country? Then the conversion rate, right? The dollar was a certain rate when you had bought in, the dollar is a certain rate now. So you have to take all the factors in place as an NRI when you sell the property. Buying a property, I think, is the easiest process, and there's no difference between an Indian buyer versus an NRI buyer. Only thing is, the NRI is not here, so he takes help from his friends who could visit on his behalf, relatives who could visit on his behalf. I advise a lot of people that all that groundwork is done by the friends and relatives. I push my clients to come spend that one day, spend that couple of lakhs on the ticket, but do come and have a look at the apartment or the property which you're buying, because you will be satisfied for the few crores of investment you're putting in.
Right. Perfect. So I think with that, we've covered the home buying process in great detail. So moving on from there, I wanted to kind of get a different, for us to look at home buying from a different perspective. There's a big debate on renting versus buying a home these days,
Right.
all over the world.
Right.
And we're starting to see a little bit of this debate in India as well.
Correct.
So I thought that we could, ask you for your opinion on this, about what do you think of for the Indian consumer in 2022?
Right.
Is there a dilemma in terms of whether one should rent a home or buy it, or is there a clear choice, do you think?
Sure. So, again, a very debatable question, and I enjoy this debate every time, where, the Gen Z population or the millennials do not want to buy property, want to rent out. Trust me,
Right.
10 years back when I was not in real estate, I had the same mindset that why to buy a property, right? You should always rent it out because your rentals are just 2% of the property. After I saw the nuances of real estate and how real estate can benefit you to increase your wealth, net worth.
Right.
And the best thing in real estate is leverage. You can't take leverage when you are renting a house, which means you can't take a loan when you're renting a house. But when you take a house on loan and you see the appreciation happening, and your appreciation is more than the firstly the rent you're paying gets negated against the EMI, and the differential amount helps you with the appreciation. The way real estate cycle is continuing for
Right.
next in last 2 years, and will continue for next few years coming in. That interest rate of 6.5% to 7% will take care of your rental, which is now 3.5% to 4% to 5% of property value. Plus the appreciation will be another at least 7% to 8%. I could sense in the coming years for every property. So that 12% to 13% capital appreciation versus a 2%, 3%, 4% rental, I would definitely advise everyone to invest their money in real estate. Not just because I am from real estate, but that money lying in your bank account will get entailed into crypto, equities, and there's certain percentage of amount which you should not, personally, if you ask me, advise, and anybody would advise you in these things. So you'd invest 10% of your wealth, 20% of your wealth, in the equities, unless you're a trader yourself, in equities or any other alternative investments. Rest of it has to come to real estate. Take loan, take that leverage, invest in real estate, and you will not, if you invest in a good property, you'll be really happy. You'll not, you'll not go wrong with it.
Right.
Right. Apart from these larger trends, I thought that we could, pick up or have a look at rather the city of Bangalore as an example of all these changes we're seeing in real estate. You have so much experience in Bangalore, first with Embassy, now with property first. So I wanted to ask you, over the last decade, what are some of the changes you've seen in the city and the real estate market there? With my very limited experience, I've heard of something like Whitefield. But what do you feel are the maybe fastest growing markets as well?
Sure. Bangalore over the last 15 years has diversified into 4 different cities. It is not one city anymore. So there's a central Bangalore, which is the MG Road, Alsur area. But however, the city has grown around it. So as you rightly said, Whitefield is one of the largest cities. South Bangalore, Electronic City is another one. The West Bangalore towards Kanakpura Road, JP Nagar, Jayanagar is another one. And the fastest growing is North Bangalore, which is the stretch from Hepal to airport and beyond. Now, each of these 4 cities converge into the city center where most of your government offices or the central business district areas, the best of the pubs and bars are. However, each of these cities have their own social ecosystems. So, Whitefield has its own schools, its own school malls, its own hospitals, and people do not travel from Whitefield to an electronic city for these things, right? So, Bangalore is developed into multiple cities where each of these cities, North Bangalore, South Bangalore, East Bangalore, West Bangalore, has its own offerings, and none of them are lesser in terms of quality than others. So the developers have been very, very aggressive in this expansion plans where the infrastructure of Bangalore has grown. There's metro connectivity, which is amazing, which is amazingly fast, coming up. There are highways being built, there are elevated corridors which have been built, right? There's public transport system which is getting upgraded nowadays. So Bangalore will see a lot of development. A person who is staying in East Bangalore may still prefer to buy in East Bangalore in a better property. A person who doesn't have any preferences would still want to stay in North Bangalore because it is more accessible and more accessible to the airport and more open roads, etc. But if you ask me, none of these different cities, investment in any of these cities will be lesser than the other, because the overall Bangalore ecosystem is growing. Do a bit of research on where the metro stations are coming up, how is the peripheral ring road coming up, how is the outer ring road touching the location, and there's a lot of development infrastructure wise also coming up in next 8 to 10 years, and people who invested in properties around outer ring road 10 to 12 years back are now enjoying the benefits of it, because outer ring road is fully built and it's connected the whole city. Now people who invest again with the same mindset for things around metro station, peripheral ring road, etc., will again benefit from these. So again, ask your consultant, I would say, with the upcoming areas development, and he'll be able to advise you better about these.
Fantastic. Bhavesh, as we're sort of coming to the close of our conversation with you, we thought we could take a step back and from a sort of larger, big picture perspective, talk about residential real estate in India and maybe even partially globally. But globally and in India, you're seeing a lot of innovation in residential real estate. You're talking about senior living, you're talking about co-living, student housing, holiday homes, and so much more. Right? There's all these configurations and permutations and combinations. But which emerging residential real estate trends do you feel are the ones to watch out for in India in the coming future?
Sure. I think once you have your own home, the desire to have a second home is looming at large when it comes to the luxury real estate. Everybody wants to have that weekend home, or that home in Goa or Coorg or any of the holiday places where they could enjoy their weekends, their bigger holidays, their retirements. That's especially with the HNIs. However, if you ask me overall about what are the other things apart from holiday homes, senior living concept as a concept is growing. People would want their parents to in a society which is fully safe and made towards taking care of senior citizens' needs. Co-living is of course coming up, but co-living is still a long way, before the acceptance comes in. But if you ask me to rate it, I think it will be the holiday homes at the top in the whole hierarchy.
Right. Fantastic. Bhavesh, I think with that, thank you so much for your time and for these amazing insights and, breaking down the whole residential home buying process in India for us. I think this is definitely an episode we were excited to record. The listeners would probably be as excited to hear as well, hopefully.
I'm sure, Yash and Akshay, it has been, trust me, a great conversation, with you guys. And I would advise all your viewers that invest in real estate. It is the best time, to invest your money in real estate for next few years, where you will continue to see a lot of appreciation. Invest through a good, knowledgeable person, and you will be able to make more returns on your property.
If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to follow Concrete Conversations on Instagram to know more about upcoming episodes and for some behind-the-scenes content.
For more deep dives into the world of Indian real estate, stay tuned for more Concrete Conversations.